Okay, let's unpack this crucial pivot point in the life of Jacob, or well, maybe we should say Israel now.
Good point.
We're talking about Genesis 35, and this chapter is just absolutely jam-packed with high-stakes action. This isn't just a travelogue. It's this rapid succession of, spiritual purification, profound personal loss,
Right.
the confirmation of a new national destiny, and really the definitive establishment of his family line, the foundation of the 12 tribes, literally.
And what's immediately clear from the source material is that this whole stretch of time, it's really about mandatory transformation. Jacob had, secured the blessing and the name Israel, but now
Now you have to build something.
exactly,
Yeah.
build the physical structure that will house that promise. So our sources, they detail this imperative return to Bethel, the sacred site.
Okay.
So our mission in this deep dive is really to dissect these highly charged moments, these intersections of human tragedy and divine covenant,
Right.
and understand how they combine to solidify a family structure that's designed to become, well, a global nation.
And for you, the listener, the relevance here is huge, I think. This material gives us a kind of blueprint for identity change under pressure. We're watching a man move from being, a wandering patriarch focused on survival
Yeah.
to establishing the spiritual and physical boundary markers for an entire civilization. It's obedience yielding immediate, irreversible change.
Right.
So the whole movement kicks off with a divine imperative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
God tells Jacob pretty unequivocally, go up to Bethel and settle there
Right.
and build an altar to the God who appeared to him way back when he was running for his life from Esau.
It's a callback to that site of earlier deliverance.
The full circle moment, kind of.
It is. It's a return to first principles, you could say. But Jacob understands that a divine appointment like this, it requires cleanliness.
Okay.
If they're going to reconnect with the covenant at Bethel, they have to jettison all the spiritual baggage they acquired while living out there.
Right, the stuff they picked up.
Yeah. And his immediate response is fascinating. Jacob addresses his entire household, commanding them to get rid of the foreign gods you have with you,
Okay.
purify yourselves, and change your clothes.
That purification sounds pretty comprehensive. It wasn't just about shedding idols, was it?
No, not at all. And we see evidence that the cleanup was meticulous. The text goes out of its way to mention that his family gives him the foreign gods. And get this, the rings in their ears.
The rings, that's specific. What's the deal with the rings? Were they just jewelry?
Well, that's where the sociological depth comes in, I think. These are likely more than just trinkets. If the family unit is harboring these items, it suggests they'd sort of assimilated practices from their travels, maybe from Shechem.
Okay, makes sense.
And Jacob recognized that this kind of spiritual syncretism, mixing covenant worship with local idolatry, would instantly compromise the foundation of the promised nation.
So he had to make a clean break.
Exactly. By collecting those physical markers, especially the rings, and burying them under the oak at Shechem, it's like a profound public exorcism.
Wow.
It's a statement. We are separating ourselves completely from the practices of the land we just left. It's an act of political and spiritual alignment, really necessary for building a nation.
And the immediate result of this commitment, the geopolitical consequence, it's kind of shocking. They weren't exactly subtle travelers. But as they journeyed toward Bethel, the chronicler notes that the terror of God fell on the towns all around them so that no one pursued them.
Yeah, like a protective bubble.
They received this protective supernatural escort.
And this is critical context. Jacob's group was vulnerable, remember? They'd just been involved in that conflict in the Shechem area.
Sure.
So this divine terror, it acts as a protective shield, reinforcing the message that their obedience had immediate practical security benefits.
Okay.
It tells us that the place they're going, Luz, which they call Bethel, is being reserved specifically for them. And once they arrive, Jacob builds the altar and calls the place El Bethel, confirming that the God of his past deliverance is now the God of his present and his future settlement.
Okay, so they've purified the camp, they've reached El Bethel. Did Jacob expect instant spiritual perfection?
Yeah.
Because right after this high point of obedience, we hit this quiet, profound personal loss.
Yeah, the narrative pauses briefly, doesn't it, to note the death of Deborah, who was Rebekah's nurse.
Right. She's buried under an oak just outside Bethel, and the place gets named Allon Bakuth, the Oak of Weeping.
And that detail, it's deeply significant. Why does the text interrupt this big covenant story to mention the death of a servant,
Good question.
Deborah was Jacob's last direct link to his mother, Rebekah. This is the moment the tether to the previous generation, the generation that helped Jacob get the blessing in the first place, is finally severed.
So he's really on his own now.
Pretty much. Jacob is officially the undisputed patriarch. And the grief surrounding her burial, it underscores that the establishment of Israel isn't purely theological. It's deeply human, tied to familial bonds, loyalty, and loss.
That clarity of lineage and identity seems to be immediately reinforced then, because God appears to him again right after he returned from Paddan Aram and settles the name once and for all. It's this authoritative repetition. Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel.
And this reiteration, it isn't just affirmation, it's really ordination. God blesses him, first proclaiming, I am God Almighty-like, signaling supreme authority.
Right.
Then the covenant moves from the personal to the national. The commands are specific. First, be fruitful and increase in number. Standard covenant language there.
Okay.
But second, this prophetic decree that a nation and a community of nations will come from you and kings will be among your descendants.
That phrase, community of nations, always jumps out. It sounds so expansive right here.
It is.
It's not just one isolated clan. It suggests, regional dominance, influence across multiple groups.
Could be. And this promise of kings. I mean, how does that fundamentally change the stakes for a man who was, not long ago, just running from his brother?
Yeah, good point.
It injects a monarchical destiny into the very DNA of the family before they even own the land or have any kind of centralized government. This promise of kings is massive. It shifts the focus from simply multiplying his descendants to achieving, a formalized political sovereignty down the line.
And speaking of land.
Right. The covenant concludes by confirming the territorial promise. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you.
So it's the full package.
It's the full package. People, power, and property. And Jacob responds appropriately. He sanctifies the location with a stone pillar, pouring out a drink offering and oil on it, calling the site Bethel. It's a highly formalized act, recognizing the gravity of this renewed promise.
But the family just cannot rest, can they? They move on from Bethel toward Ephrath, and the narrative just hits this stunning emotional crescendo. Rachel.
Yeah.
The beloved wife, the one who waited so long for children, she begins this difficult childbirth while there's still some distance from Ephrath.
The scene is just profoundly tragic. Yeah. The labor is fatal, but the midwife, she attempts encouragement.
But Rachel knows.
She knows her fate, and she uses her dying breath to name the boy Benoni, which means son of my trouble.
Oof, that's heavy.
It's a name defined entirely by the agony of its arrival and the grief of the mother.
But Jacob immediately rejects that legacy of grief, doesn't he? He steps in.
He does. He intervenes and renames the boy Benjamin, meaning son of my right hand, or sometimes interpreted as son of strength or even good fortune.
That's a profound moment of, paternal redefinition. Jacob chooses hope and future strength over defining the child by the tragedy of his birth.
Absolutely. He refuses to allow the foundational identity of a future tribe to be linked permanently to sorrow. It's an act of defiance, really, against fate, and an affirmation of the covenant's promise of strength.
So Rachel died and was buried there on the way to Ephrath, which we know later as Bethlehem.
Right. And Jacob ensures this place is also marked. He sets up a pillar over her tomb, and the text emphasizes it's still recognized to this day.
And here's where the contrast really crystallizes for you, the listener. Jacob erects two pillars in rapid succession. One at Bethel,
the covenant pillar,
marking the place of eternal, divine covenant and the promise of a glorious future. And then the second pillar, marking his deepest personal loss, the grave of Rachel.
Both necessary, foundational markers.
Yeah, the sacred and the tragic are literally defining the boundary lines of Israel right here.
So with the final son, Benjamin, born, the physical requirement for the national promise is complete. The lineage is full.
All 12 sons are there.
Right. But the very next thing the narrative includes, immediately following the promise and the burial, is an act of profound internal crisis.
Oh, yeah. This part is rough.
As Israel moves on past Migdal Eder, we read the stark, terrible fact that Reuben, who is Leah's firstborn,
the heir apparent.
Exactly. He slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and we're simply told Israel heard of it. Just blunt.
The placement of this scandal right here, it feels critically important. The divine promise that community of nations, the kings, it's just been solidified. The family structure is officially complete, and boom, immediately its internal hierarchy is violated by the heir.
Yeah.
This incident just throws a massive wrench into the established order. It challenges Jacob's authority. It deeply compromises the integrity of the firstborn son.
And it's such a jarring reminder that the people carrying this divine covenant are deeply flawed. You have this moment of, high covenant confirmation followed instantly by moral failure. The source material really emphasizes this tension, the ideal versus the reality.
So Reuben's action wasn't just like a personal failing.
Oh, it's much more. It's not just a sexual transgression. Some see it as an attempted political coup, asserting dominance over his father's household, maybe trying to secure his own position.
Oh, yeah.
And while the full political fallout isn't detailed until much later, its mere inclusion here signals the inherent complexity and, frankly, messiness of the covenant people.
Right. It sets a precedent. The spiritual destiny of Israel is going to constantly be negotiated against this backdrop of human dysfunction.
Pretty much.
Right.
Yet, despite the turmoil, the source uses this critical moment to transition directly into listing the foundational elements of the promise, the definitive catalog of the 12 sons who will become the 12 tribes. This list is the core structure. These are the 12 sons, all born to Jacob while he was in Padan Aram, structured around their mothers. We see the 6 sons of Leah, Reuben, who has now dramatically compromised his position, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Then the 2 sons of Rachel, Joseph, the favorite, and the newborn, Benjamin. And finally, the sons born to the servant women, ensuring the fullness of the lineage. Dan and Naphtali, born to Rachel's servant Bilhah.
The one involved in the scandal.
Right. And Gad and Asher, born to Leah's servant Zilpah. This listing just solidifies the structure. The promise is fixed, even as the people are already struggling.
So with the family structure confirmed, established, even amidst the drama, the focus shifts back one last time to the previous generation. Jacob Israel comes home, finally, to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron.
The old ancestral hub.
Exactly, the place where Abraham and Isaac had dwelled.
And this really brings the generational narrative to a sense of completion. Isaac lived an incredibly long life, 180 years.
Wow.
He died, the source notes, old and full of years. And that phrasing, it often signifies a life leave to its natural conclusion, blessed by longevity and a peaceful passing.
He saw a lot.
He certainly did. He witnessed his son Jacob return wealthy, established, renamed, seeing the next generation secured.
And the final detail, which is really poignant, is the burial itself. Esau and Jacob.
Yeah.
The twins who started their lives wrestling in the womb spent decades separated by fear and jealousy. They reunite for this singular final act.
They bury their father together.
That moment, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the final necessary act of unity, maybe, for the covenant to pass fully and solely to Israel. The immediate personal conflict between the brothers Jacob and Esau is reconciled, at least outwardly, in the presence of death.
Allowing the bigger story to move forward.
Exactly. Allowing the greater national narrative centered on Israel's descendants to proceed unimpeded. The conflict kind of ends as the promise begins its next big phase. Hashtag tag outro.
So if we synthesize this whole deep dive, what we've seen is just a tremendous amount of structural work happening in a very short, intense period.
Definitely.
Jacob became Israel. And in that process, he established the core spiritual center at Bethel through purification and covenant. And he finalized the complete line of his descendants, the 12 sons, all while navigating immense personal grief and necessary sacrifice.
And this material is just such a powerful study in contrast, isn't it? You have the divine architect laying out these blueprints for a massive nation.
Yeah, defining land, kings, multitude.
Defining its land, its kings, its sheer multitude of people. Yet the material being used, the human family, is immediately shown to be flawed, messy, and prone to catastrophic failure.
Yeah. The purity of the altar stands in such stark relief against the immediate scandal in the tent.
Exactly.
And this brings us back to that great paradox that the narrative presented by putting the family crisis right where it did. We saw the cleansing at Shechem, the covenant at Bethel.
High points.
Followed instantly by the crisis of Reuben violating his father's household.
Which raises a critical question, I think, for you to consider. Why ground the covenant, this absolute promise of nationhood, kings, and land, not just in moments of pristine perfection and sacrifice,
but also in the unavoidable, messy reality of family conflict, moral weakness, and interpersonal betrayal?
Right. What does it signify that the foundation of a holy nation is built directly upon the complex, flawed nature of humanity itself? That complexity is perhaps the most enduring lesson of this pivotal deep dive.